What would you do if your neighbor started acting strange one evening, pacing outside, checking their phone every few seconds, glancing nervously at the street like they were waiting for something or someone? Now imagine this. The next morning you find out her husband, a well-known, successful, and seemingly loved man, was brutally murdered in their own home. Coincidence or something darker? I didn't know Fabio Sementilli well. He was a name, not a neighbor. The kind of guy you'd read about in beauty magazines or catch smiling in some charity gala photo. He was a celebrity hairstylist, famous in his world, but quiet around here. They lived 3 houses down, the big place with the roses always trimmed perfectly and 2 cars that seemed more wax than metal. His wife, Monica, now she was something else. You know that feeling when someone waves a little too hard, laughs a little too loud, as if they're trying to prove they're normal? That was Monica, always smiling, always friendly. But something behind her eyes made you feel like she was watching a scene unfold that you couldn't see. And then came that one night. It was January 23, 2017. A regular evening in Woodland Hills, crisp, quiet, still. Until around 5:30 p.m. when I saw Monica pull into her driveway, get out of her Porsche, and just stand there. No groceries in hand. No rush. Just staring at her phone like it had delivered a prophecy. She paced back and forth. One glance toward her house. One glance down the street. The street that would hours later become flooded with police cars and crime scene tape. At the time I thought, maybe she's waiting for a delivery. Now, I wonder if she was watching something. Or someone. That night, Fabio Sementilli was stabbed 7 times. He was alone in the house. Monica, police would later say, was out running errands. The intruders, or rather the killer, ransacked the bedroom, tore through drawers, and then vanished. Except not before taking something important. Not jewelry. Not cash. Not even the $8000 Rolex still clinging to Fabio's wrist like it didn't want to leave him. No, they took the home security DVR. The brain of the house. The only device that could have told police what really happened inside those walls. Coincidence? Or was someone wiping their fingerprints? And their trail? At first it looked like a robbery gone wrong. Until detectives noticed something strange. Why didn't they take the Rolex? Why leave behind valuables, yet steal the security footage? Why did Monica, the grieving widow, avoid eye contact in interviews, yet seem perfectly composed during the funeral? And what about the man who kept showing up in her text history? A man with a criminal record, and a past on camera, but not the kind you want to Google at work. His name was Robert Baker. And that's where this story begins to unravel. A glamorous marriage. A secret lover. A $1.5 million life insurance policy. And a plan, months in the making, executed with surgical precision and digital footprints. But before the confession, before the courtroom, and before the breakdown on the witness stand, there was that night. The night Monica stood in her driveway, waiting. What would you do if your neighbor watched her husband die and said nothing? What if she wasn't just watching, but helping it happen? The crime scene was messy, not in the literal sense. The blood, the wounds, yes, they were brutal. But what truly disturbed the investigators that day was how everything seemed just a little too intentional. Performed. Fabio Sementilli was found lying near the back patio. He'd been stabbed 7 times. A violent, up-close murder. No signs of forced entry. No shattered glass. No splintered door frame. Just a man, a father, left bleeding in his own home as his blood soaked into the flooring beneath him. The killer or killers had done more than just murder him. They had rummaged through drawers, flipped over cushions, torn through the master bedroom like they were looking for something valuable. But then, why leave the most obvious thing behind? His Rolex, and $8000 timepiece, was still on his wrist, untouched. His wedding ring? Still there. Other electronics? All there. But the DVR system, the one storing video from the home security cameras, was gone. So were Monica's statements, gone from clarity to contradiction in the span of hours. She told police she'd been out running errands. But where exactly? The receipts were vague. Timelines were fuzzy. And cell tower pings? They placed her in the area, but not at the precise locations she claimed. There was something else too. Something eerie. Her reaction. Neighbors described her as calm. Oddly calm. Not the sobbing widow you'd expect. No collapsing to her knees, no desperate cries of why or who. In fact, one neighbor said Monica kept repeating just two words. Oh no. Oh no. Over and over. No anger. No grief. Just the rhythm of those two words. The detectives were puzzled. But that changed when the blood test results came back. DNA at the scene didn't match any strangers. It wasn't some random burglar. It belonged to a man named Robert Baker. The moment his name showed up in the system, alarms went off. Robert Baker wasn't just anyone. He was a registered sex offender, a former adult film actor, and a racquetball coach, at the same gym Monica and Fabio attended. Now, investigators weren't looking at a robbery anymore. They were looking at something darker. Accessed. They pulled Monica's phone records, emails, texts, cloud backups, and what they found stunned even seasoned detectives. Thousands of explicit, romantic, and deeply emotional messages between Monica and Robert Baker. They'd been having an affair, one that dated back months, maybe more. Monica had referred to Baker as her soulmate, her real husband, and, in one chilling message, she called him the only man who truly sees me. It wasn't just lust. It was obsession. But the most damning detail? Investigators believed Monica watched the murder happen in real time. That night, Monica claimed she was out at a Target store. But text logs showed her accessing the home security app while Fabio was being attacked. In other words, she was watching the live feed as her husband was stabbed 7 times. Police now had a theory. Monica and Baker planned it. Fabio was worth more dead than alive. He had a $1.5 million life insurance policy. Monica stood to gain everything. The house, the money, the sympathy, the clean image of a grieving widow. And she wouldn't even have to go through the shame of divorce. To the outside world it would look like tragedy. But to Monica, it would be freedom. That's when the case took a turn. A man named Christopher Austin entered the picture. He was a friend of Robert Baker. Just a face in the background, until he confessed. Christopher Austin told police everything. The affair. The plan. Even a failed attempt to kill Fabio weeks earlier. He claimed Monica knew everything. That she didn't just watch, she encouraged it. In his confession he recalled Baker saying, "She wants him gone. She's ready." And Monica? She allegedly asked for updates while she was out. She wanted to know, in her words, when it was done. 2 arrests followed. Robert Baker and Monica Sementilli. The headlines were everywhere. Celebrity hairstylist murdered. Wife arrested. Porn star lover. $1 million motive. But this wasn't the end of the story. This was just the beginning of the trial. A courtroom drama filled with betrayals, shocking photos, and secrets no jury ever expected to hear. What if the most dangerous place isn't the street outside your home, but the arms of the person sleeping next to you? It started like most affairs do, quietly. A stolen glance at the gym. A few conversations that lingered a little too long. Late-night texts that began as innocent and turned into something else. But what Monica Sementilli and Robert Baker shared wasn't just a secret romance. It was a plan. When detectives combed through Monica's digital life, they weren't just looking for evidence of infidelity. They found a blueprint for murder. Over 10,000 messages between Monica and Baker. That's not an exaggeration. Some were emotional. Some were sexual. But others? Others felt like something else entirely, like code. He has no idea what's coming. I want to be free. Finally free. Once the house is quiet, you'll know. Cryptic, yes, but not when paired with what followed. Monica had sent Robert nude photos, while she was attending her husband's funeral. That detail stunned the courtroom when it came out. The prosecution argued it wasn't just inappropriate, it was psychologically cold, calculated, and revealing. Who sends intimate photos to their lover during the ceremony meant to honor their murdered spouse? Unless, of course, they were celebrating something entirely different. They weren't just having an affair. They were sharing surveillance footage, mapping the layout of the house, and discussing how the system could be disabled. A digital forensics expert testified that Monica had given Baker details about her home security setup, what cameras recorded when, where the blind spots were, and how to remove the DVR. And most chillingly, she lied about it. When detectives asked Monica about Baker, she denied knowing him. Flat out lied. She also refused to give police the passcode to her iPhone. Even when investigators obtained access through a digital warrant, they found deliberate deletions, text messages removed, photos erased, timestamps altered. But as anyone in digital forensics will tell you, nothing is ever really gone. One message stood out. It was a single line sent from Monica to Baker, just days before Fabio's murder. "Do it before the end of the month. I can't live like this anymore." That line would become a cornerstone in the prosecution's case. A cry for help? Or an execution order? The jury would soon have to decide. But perhaps the most disturbing moment wasn't in a message. It came from Fabio's own sister. She testified that even after the murder, Monica never made arrangements for her brother's final resting place. No cemetery. No headstone. No plans. And when the family offered security protection for Monica, fearing the killer might return, she refused. Didn't want it. Didn't need it. Said she felt safe. What? Because, the prosecutors argued, she already knew the killer had no reason to come back. Bit by bit, the image of a grieving widow began to crumble. This wasn't a woman who was devastated. This was a woman who was waiting for insurance paperwork to clear, for public sympathy to swell, for her new life with Baker to begin. She didn't just mourn Fabio. She marketed his death. The prosecution painted her as a master manipulator, hiding behind charm, Botox, and crocodile tears. The defense? They said she was just flawed, human, guilty of cheating, not of killing. But the digital evidence told a different story. And then came a twist. Christopher Austin, Baker's friend, the reluctant accomplice, testified. In exchange for a lighter sentence, he told the court everything. He spoke of a failed attempt to kill Fabio weeks earlier, a plan that didn't go through because Monica was nervous. He claimed Baker told him, "She wants him gone, but she doesn't want to know how." That statement was chilling. It described a very specific kind of guilt, passive but lethal. Monica may not have wielded the knife, but if she watched the feed, if she sent the messages, if she cleared the path, wasn't she the one who unlocked the front door? By now the courtroom had seen enough. The photos, the messages, the deleted texts, the emotionless face of a woman who once called her murdered husband her best friend. The prosecution had one more line for the jury. This wasn't a moment of passion. It was months of planning, fueled by greed and lust. What if you loved someone, but not as much as you loved the life you'd have without them? What if someone in your bed was quietly planning your end? By the time Monica Sementilli walked into the courtroom, she wasn't just the grieving wife anymore. She was the accused, charged with first-degree murder, with conspiracy, with lying in wait, with letting the man she once called the love of her life bleed to death while she allegedly watched from her phone. And now, 12 strangers would decide her fate. The prosecution, led by veteran homicide prosecutor Beth Silverman, wasted no time painting a chilling picture. Opening statements took days. Beth didn't just list facts. She told a story, one laced with betrayal, greed, and a deadly kind of romance. She described Monica as a woman who didn't want divorce, didn't want public shame, didn't want to lose the glamorous lifestyle. She wanted out, but clean. And Fabio's murder would give her everything. The prosecution brought in expert after expert. Digital forensic analysts traced Monica's deleted messages and her real-time access to home security apps. Family members took the stand, revealing how Monica refused a resting place for Fabio. Even Fabio's sister, through tears, told the court how Monica seemed more concerned about appearances than grief. And then came the most shocking detail. Monica had texted explicit photos to Robert Baker while she was at her husband's funeral. Gasps filled the room. That wasn't just scandal. That was motive. That was coldness the jury could see. The prosecution's theory was clear. Monica used Baker. She fed him the details. And she let it happen. She didn't need to hold the knife. She just needed to let the wrong man into her life and stand back. Then came the defense. Attorney Blair Burke stood up calmly, faced the jury, and asked one question. Does cheating make you a killer? Her argument was simple. Yes, Monica had an affair. Yes, she lied about knowing Baker. Yes, she made mistakes. But that didn't mean she conspired to kill her husband. Burke argued that the evidence showed Robert Baker and Christopher Austin plotted the crime, that they had their own motives, and that Monica was merely a mistress, not a mastermind. She told the jury, "We are here to judge criminal guilt, not moral depravity." Courtroom clock ticking softly. The courtroom was torn. On one side, a woman smiling through grief. On the other, thousands of damning digital messages and a timeline that fit too well. But nothing hit harder than Austin's testimony. Christopher Austin sat on the witness stand, eyes down, voice shaking. He said Monica knew. She encouraged it. He described a moment where Baker texted him. She says tonight is the night. He talked about the failed attempt, when Baker lost his nerve, and how Monica had become impatient. He admitted to being in it for the money. He admitted to holding a knife. But he said Monica Sementilli was the reason it ever happened. Then something unexpected happened. During cross-examination, Monica broke down. The cold mask, the same one she'd worn through funerals, interviews, and pretrial hearings, began to crack. She wept on the stand. Not for Fabio, but for herself. She said she felt manipulated. That Robert Baker had taken things too far. That she never wanted him to die. But the prosecution leaned in and asked, "Then why did you watch it happen?" The courtroom fell silent. No answer came. Just sobbing. Both sides delivered closing arguments. The prosecution called it a story of lust, money, and manipulation. They reminded the jury Monica wasn't just unfaithful, she was strategic. She watched her husband die, and then kissed his killer. The defense said the state had built a story around emotion, not facts. Yes, she's guilty of bad decisions. But bad decisions are not murder. The jury left to deliberate. One day passed. Then another half day. Everyone held their breath. Would they see Monica as a cheating wife, or a murderous mastermind? And then on day 2 they returned. The courtroom was full. The cameras were rolling. Monica looked straight ahead. The clerk read the verdict. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Monica Sementilli, guilty of first-degree murder, with special circumstances of financial gain and lying in wait, and guilty of conspiracy to commit murder." She collapsed into tears. Not a dramatic scream. Just the quiet breaking of a woman who'd been caught, not by chance but by evidence, by motive, by her own words. What do you call someone who watches murder happen from a distance, but never lifts a hand to stop it? What do you call betrayal, when it wears perfume, smiles at the neighbors, and calls itself love? June 23rd. The courtroom was quieter than usual. The frenzy of the trial had passed. The headlines faded, the cameras fewer, but justice wasn't done yet. It was sentencing day. Monica Sementilli walked in wearing the same neutral-colored suit she had worn nearly every day of the trial. But this time there were no opening arguments. No objections. No witnesses. Just a judge, and a sentence that would define what was left of her life. Monica Sementilli, you are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No second chances. No early release. No freedom. Just a lifetime to sit with the choices she made, or let happen. She didn't speak. Not to the court. Not to Fabio's family. Not to the people who once called her friend. The woman who once smiled at press events, once spoke on TV about love and family, now stared ahead as if looking at something no one else could see. Fabio's family delivered impact statements. Tears, anger, heartbreak. His sister's voice cracked when she said, "We didn't just lose Fabio. We lost the truth about who we thought Monica was." There's a saying in the true crime world, you never really know someone until the trial starts. And for the Sementilli family, that proved true. But here's where the story refuses to fade neatly. Because even with the guilty verdict, with Monica locked away forever, some things still don't add up. Christopher Austin's testimony, though powerful, was part of a deal. He got a lighter sentence in exchange for his story. And Robert Baker, the man who held the knife, never testified. He pled no contest. He was sentenced to life in prison. But to this day, he claims Monica was innocent. He wrote in a letter, "She didn't plan this. I did. She didn't know how far it would go." He called her his soulmate, even after everything, a twisted loyalty or a final lie. And then, there's Monica herself. She never confessed, never wrote a letter, never explained. She just disappeared behind bars and behind silence. But what if she was more than guilty? What if she wasn't just watching the murder, but controlling it? Remember that night? The neighbor saw her pacing outside, glancing at her phone, texting someone, then stopping. Did she already know it was done? Or what if the real plan, the real mastermind, was someone we still don't know? What if Monica's story isn't over, just paused? After all, people in prison talk. Secrets leak. Deals fall apart. And digital trails? They always go deeper than we think. What if the real question isn't, did she do it? But instead, how many people helped her get away with it for this long? What would you do if the person next door wasn't just your neighbor, but the quiet hand behind someone's murder? Would you still wave good morning?